That fee on your last shipped order. Its ancestor was invented in 1507 by a man who never heard the word globalization. You paid it anyway, and you never even saw the toll booth. Here's what nobody tells you when a package shows up 2 days late, or $1 more expensive than the listing promised. Somewhere between the factory and your front door, a fee got added. You didn't negotiate it. You didn't see who collected it. You just paid it, buried in the price tag, and moved on with your day. That fee has a father. His name was Afonso de Albuquerque. In 1507, the Portuguese crown forced its way into Hormuz, the narrow gate every ship needed to pass through to move goods between the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. Portugal's grip there was rough at first. It would take another 8 years before the fort was fully secured, but the intent was already locked in place. Every merchant vessel, Arab, Indian, Persian, it didn't matter whose flag it flew, needed a license to sail through. Not a suggestion, a requirement. Refuse it, and the cannons on the water decided what happened next. Stay with that image, because this is not a history lesson about an old Portuguese tax stamp. This is the origin file on a machine that is still running today, on more than one choke point at the same time. The empire that built it is gone. The mechanism it built is not. It didn't die. It franchised. Let's open the file properly. The license was called a cartaz. The exact charge varied port to port, cargo to cargo, but the principle never moved. You paid it at the checkpoint before you ever reached a market, before you ever made a single sale. The money left your hands before your goods ever left the ship's hold. That's the first thing to understand about this mechanism. It intercepts the money before the destination, not after. Albuquerque didn't invent the toll. Tolls are ancient. What he invented was sharper, a mandatory bureaucratic pass, tied to a strait no ship could route around. The cannon enforced it in the beginning, but the paper is what made it permanent. Cannons rust. Paperwork renews itself every voyage indefinitely, with no expiration date and no one left alive to argue about why it started. Same door, same stamp, same shrug from every captain who paid it and sailed on. And now, here is the truly unsettling part. This was never a simple two-party deal. Portugal charging, Persia paying, and that's the end of the story. That framing makes it sound finished. It wasn't. It was a franchise model, and the franchise didn't need its founder to survive. Portugal's grip on Hormuz eventually loosened. Empires rotate out. That's what empires do. But the mechanism underneath it, choke point, license, fee, enforcement, turned out to be separable from the flag flying over it. The landlord changed hands. The rent did not. That's the real reason this thing outlived the empire that invented it by 5 centuries. Nobody needed to copy Portugal. They only needed to find the next narrow strip of water and let the geography write the contract for them. Fast forward to March 2021. The container ship Ever Given wedges sideways across the Suez Canal. 6 days. Global trade backs up hour by hour because there is no detour around it, not one that makes economic sense anyway. The Suez Canal Authority didn't move overnight, but within the following year, it started raising transit fees and kept raising them again the year after that and the year after that. Officially, the reason was global freight rates and inflation. But notice what made that pricing possible in the first place. A choke point that had just proven in front of the entire shipping world exactly how irreplaceable it was. When there is no alternative route, price stops being something you negotiate on equal footing. It becomes a toll. You either pay it or your ship finds another way around an entire continent. That's the Cartaz, minus the cannon, because by now the geography enforces itself. Nobody needs gunpowder when there's no second door to walk through. If you're starting to see the pattern here, that's exactly the point of this channel. Subscribe to Fiscal Relics because this is the ledger most channels never bother opening, the one where empires end, but their invoices don't. 2 years after Ever Given, a different choke point, a different kind of pressure. 2023, the Panama Canal, not blocked by a ship this time, but by drought. Water levels drop too low to run the locks at full capacity. The Panama Canal Authority doesn't respond by lowering prices to match reduced service. It auctions transit slots instead. Shipping companies bid against each other for the right to cross sooner rather than wait in a queue that could cost them weeks. Some pay millions of dollars just to skip the line. Nobody installed a physical customs post this time. Nobody needed to. The choke point does the same job a checkpoint used to do. It just moved the fee out of a tariff schedule and into a bidding platform. The Cartaz is still being paid. The stamp just looks like an auction now. And it doesn't stop at the canal gates. Follow the money further downstream. Insurance premiums spike on high-risk shipping routes. Shipping companies fold that cost into freight pricing. Freight pricing gets folded into wholesale pricing. Wholesale pricing gets folded into whatever you pay at checkout weeks or months later, with no receipt anywhere in the chain that mentions a strait, a drought, or a stranded container ship. The fee goes invisible again, exactly the way it did 5 centuries ago when a merchant simply raised his own prices to absorb the license he'd been forced to buy. Compliance produces more compliance. Every layer downstream quietly passes the toll forward. Here's the twist that should sit with you longer than the fee itself. People assume these choke points sit outside the law, that whoever has the bigger gun just takes the toll. The truth is almost the opposite, and somehow more unsettling. Suez is owned outright by Egypt. Panama is owned outright by Panama. Both by treaty, both fully legal, both completely legitimate on paper. The ownership was never the problem. Owning a choke point was never what gave anyone leverage. What gives leverage is the simple, stubborn fact that there is no second door. You can hand the deed to whoever you like. The strait doesn't care whose flag is on the paperwork. It just sits there, exactly as narrow as it was yesterday, and whoever holds the deed collects. Which means this mechanism can't be defeated by ownership disputes or new treaties alone. You could renegotiate every agreement on record tomorrow morning, and the water would still only have one way through. To actually break this machine, you wouldn't need new paperwork. You would need to erase the geography. You would need to move the oceans. So here's where the toll booth that opened in 1507 actually stands today. Same business model, 3 storefronts, Hormuz, Suez, Panama. And you already paid one of them this month, buried in the price of gas, in a bag of coffee, in whatever just arrived at your door a little later and a little more expensive than the tracking page promised. Portugal built the blueprint. Nobody ever had to copy the paperwork. They only had to find the next narrow strip of water and let it write the rest of the invoice for them. You never need to capture a capital city. You just need to capture the strait.